Okay, well, thank you for coming. My name is Maddie Hinkle. I'm the Youth and Family Connections Coordinator with CHS. So I run our youth and family programs, which include a deaf mentor program. We do free family sign language classes. We do education advocacy, various referrals, presentations at schools and family events, all sorts of stuff. One of the things we do is to hold these webinars to help you learn from a deaf professional about something related to deafness. So we talked to families, and one thing that kept coming up was that back to school, they're seeing more behavior with their kids and they're looking for ways to support them. So we've invited Kari Taylor, and I'm going to turn it over to her.
Thank you, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for having me be here. I'm super excited to share back to school behavior support strategies, as well as what ISRC can do for you and your families. So let's jump right in. That's interesting. Never had that. Okay, so let's get started. So first thing, obviously, we're going to talk about is communication. Behavior is a form of communication, whether that's positive behaviors, negative behaviors, anything that is actionable, measurable, observable. That is a form of communication. One of the things that I like to talk about with families is being specific. And here's here's an example of being specific. You know how now I have three daughters. They are CODA. I am deaf and hard of hearing, generational. And they are now in college level students. But when they were little, I remember saying, "Hey, how was school?" And what was the answer? It's fine. It's boring. Fine. It's boring. It was just the same two words. And so I realized, like, in order for me to get more out of them, I needed to be more specific. So instead of saying, "How is school?" I would say, "Hey, how was your math class? You're working on fractions, is that a hard thing?" So I would ask specific questions related to their school. "Hey, anybody get, rowdy at lunch today?" That gives you an idea of who's like a really rowdy group of kids. And, if you ask those specific questions, you're going to get more. Next thing, obviously, we want to talk about is the first then approach. This is what we call a pre-MAC principle. And this is using a low probability with a high probability. So, for example, I don't like doing my homework, but I certainly love going outside to play. So first do your homework, then you can go outside to play. Low probability, and then you get a high probability. And we're going to talk more about that later. Communication is want to use in all social interactions. So an example, growing up in a hearing family, I was the only one who was deaf, and my brother and I would bicker across the table. And my parents were my biggest advocates, but there's just something they just didn't catch on. And now this is back in the 70s, so I'm a lot older than I look. But the bickering got to be so bothersome for my parents. My mom would put a big pot of flowers right smack in the middle of the table. So it would block my brother and I interactions. But then what happens is I stopped interacting with everyone else, and I would bring a magazine to the table. And then my mom was like, "We don't have magazines at the table." I said, "Yeah, but I don't know what's going on at the table." And it dawned on her that, oh my goodness, like, okay, so then she removed the flowers, and then she had to come up with something else to keep us from bickering across the table. Another example that I find very interesting is car rides. as a hearing aid user in my right ear, one of the things that I notice is when I'm sitting, it has a passenger or sitting in the back seat on the passenger side, I was not able to interact with other people in the car. But if I sat behind the driver's side, back seat driver's side, I was able to hear what was going on because it was directly into my hearing aid side. So that was a lot of those little things makes a big difference. So all social interactions, we want to position our child so that they are fully access to communication, visually, auditorily, and so that's a big communication piece. We also want to provide opportunities for a child to express their feelings. Right now, that big movie Inside Out 2, I've seen a lot of kids. I went just recently. Emotions and feeling words are really becoming a big topic, a big thing that they're using in the schools. Back when we were kids, that was not touched on much. So one of the things we want to do is really start building that emotional vocabulary. Communicating it's your frustrations, communicating your happiness, communicating your sadness as a way instead of tantrums, crying, getting mad, using not so kind words, those behaviors, we want to replace it with strong emotion vocabulary. We also want to provide choices. We want to make sure that they're equal choices, and I'll talk more a little bit about that. So we want to replace ineffective communication strategies with effective communication strategies. So for example, when your child is yelling and overtired, mine usually start melting down right about before bedtime. And they're so overtired, they're fighting it, especially when the weather was still light out at 7:30 when it was bedtime, or 8 o'clock. So I had to teach my children, instead of like melting down, just say bed, or I'm tired, or book. Some of those things, that's what we want to replace that ineffective communication strategies. That's ineffective, is the yelling and the overtired. We want them to ask, okay, it's bed, it's bath. Maybe they like to have a bath before bed. Another example is crying when frustrated. When they're frustrated with homework or with something that happened on the playground or in the classroom or in art or music, and they're telling you about it, and we teach them, okay, advocate, okay, go tell your teacher, talk to your teacher. Well, that's very hard for a kiddo to talk to a teacher. There's sometimes it could be just don't know how to talk to a teacher. They may not have the vocabulary to say, I'm struggling, those kind of things. It's very, very hard. So we would want to teach our child to say, ask for help. So we would teach our child to ask for help at home. It starts at home. We build that so they can transfer that skill to the school environment. Use the first then approach. It looks like I wrote that down twice. That's how important it is. We also want to have their attention before giving directions. So this is an interesting thing that I do see occur often. And this happens to me as an adult with my adult children. Kids, they're walking away and they're muttering, and I'm like, I can't hear a word they're saying. So when I say, hey, it's Wednesday is garbage night, I still have to tell my 18-year-old it's garbage night on Wednesday. And she's walking away, and I'm like, did she hear what I said? I don't. So you want to get their attention before you give them a direction. So you would say, hey, over here, look at me, face to face, before giving directions. And then one step further, you want to have them repeat back what your direction is. So those are for those younger kiddos that may have ADHD, they may have a learning disability, they may have retention, lack of retention and retaining information. You want to make sure that you're clear in your directions and have them repeat back to you what those directions are. Then you know that they heard you and they understood what you were giving them. You also want to reduce distractions. I can remember when my children were, especially after school, dinner time, I'm trying to cook, trying to, make this healthy meal, trying to do 5 things at once, check my mail, and, the kids are outside playing or they're watching TV or whatever it is that they're doing. And I'm saying, hey, dinner in 5 minutes. Well, nobody's paying attention to me. And I realized I was just talking to myself. So what I had to do was turn off the TV, or I had to go outside and say, hey, everybody over here, dinner in 5 minutes. So you want to reduce those distractions to get their fullest attention. My favorite thing, my motto is keep it simple, less is best. And what I mean by that is oftentimes we feel that we need to explain our rationale to our kiddos. We need to have them understand why, we're taking their iPad away, or they lost a privilege, or, they didn't listen to mommy and daddy. We have this need to explain ourselves. Well, they don't have the need to have you explain yourself. They don't care about you explaining yourself. All they're hearing is, I lost my iPad. They're not hearing all the why. So you want to keep it best. Because you didn't follow directions, you lost your iPad. That's it. When you start going on and on about why the iPad, you will not listen, all of that, you've lost them at the first word of no. No outside play, because they don't care. All they heard was no outside play. So less is best. Keep it simple. Next. Okay, setting clear expectations. This is something that we love to have our families as well as schools. Every family functions differently and everybody has different expectations. This is not a one size fit all. This is what you would set up for your family. And here are just some suggestions. Set clear expectations weekly or daily. Tell them what you want to see. Create a visual schedule to be used daily. Excuse me. I was a single mom, but I also worked full time. And so our mornings were hectic. It was beyond hectic. That's just a nice way of saying it was hectic. And I had to figure out how I was going to get 3 girls out of bed, dress, eat something, get them in the car, get them to school. And all by like 7:30. So I created a visual schedule and a visual checklist. As the kids were getting older, I wanted them to be more independent in getting themselves ready for school. So we would go over it every night before bed, the expectations for the next day. Worked great. I tell them exactly what I want to see. I want to see you get up after I wake you up once, not 10 times later, once. And then you have your checklist, which you would check off when you're done. And I want you to be at that door by 7:30. And as they gotten older, it became a ritual. They knew the expectations. I had to model those expectations. So I would get up, I would get dressed, I would have breakfast, I would be at that door 7:30. So they would see that my expectations was for me too. I want to restate those expectations when I'm leaving the house or entering a public place. So for example, I am very big on manners. And one of the things that I have impressed upon my children since they were little bitty was to say please and thank you. And or say when they ask for something, they would have to say, may I have this? Those were the expectations I would tell them when I was leaving the house. When we would leave the house and we get into the car and we enter a restaurant, we would talk about that in the car. Okay, remember our manners. What is it that is a good thing to do? And they would rattle it off and they would do that. And now that they are older, they talk about that. Hey, people are always just nice when we are nice to them. Exactly, kindness, right? Um, create consequences when expectations are not met. Excuse me. Consequences is not a bad word. Oftentimes you hear consequences, punishment is a bad thing. We are not punishing our kiddos. We are providing consequences so those behaviors you don't want, and they did not meet those expectations, don't happen again. So we'll talk more about consequences. Parents need to be on the same page. Oftentimes, I come in and work with families. I have a mom and a dad clearly not on the same page when it comes to expectations. And the kiddo knows that and will go to whatever parent they can manipulate. What can I get out of this, out of mom? What can I get out of dad? You guys need to be on the same page. Know your triggers, especially you want to identify them before they happen. Prepare yourselves to follow through. So if going out to the store, Walmart, is too loud, it's too chaotic, it's too sensory overload, that. You may want to pick a time when that's not very busy. If you go to a restaurant and it's like 5:30 and it's jam-packed, that's just not going to sit well with your kiddo. Go either earlier or go later. But if you have to go at a certain time, prepare yourselves for those sensory overload or those behaviors, because kiddos have the worst level of patience, right? So we want to have our goodie bag, we want to have our bag of tricks, we want to have our snacks, so prepare yourselves that the expectation is we need to sit here and wait for our food. Here's a game. How about you and I playing game? Or here's a snack. Prepare yourself to follow through. If the child is not able to do that, then you need to rethink and say, maybe we need to do this dinner another time and leave the restaurant. Next. One of the things that ISRC that we really promote is the TMPR, which is teach, model, prompt, and reinforce. So how will we teach the new behavior? So we would do visuals. We have a lot of social stories, written direction, verbal explanations. Remember, less is best. So, we want our kiddo to pick up their toys. You can have a social story on a child picking up their toys, and then they get a reward. When my kiddos were junior high and early high school, I had Post-it notes. These are the things that must be done before I come home for dinner. So that was part of listening to my direction and follow through. So those are teach the new behavior. Next is model. We as parents, we would demonstrate those behaviors. When I am using the word please and thank you or may I in restaurants or stores, anywhere, I'm modeling that behavior, that expectation. I'm also sometimes role play. I had to do that with my children. All three of my children have disabilities. So I would have to demonstrate the appropriate social play. I would also do some video modeling as well. You can find some really cool YouTube videos on social skills. Those are really neat. Um, the next thing is prompt. Every morning before transitions, we use visual timers. Those are all over my house. Verbal prompts, gestures, um, prompting appropriate behavior when we are doing a play date. When we had birthday parties and everybody, my kids, every kid in the classroom would come to my house, and we would have a birthday party. You know, those prompts we would work on with having them demonstrate positive social skills, manners. We would work on including everyone in play. And I would prompt by saying, hey, Grace, why don't you ask your friends if you want to play a game? Transitions are very difficult for a lot of kiddos, mine included. And the prompting would happen when we, meet at the door at 7:30. We got to transition into the car in the morning, and we're still half asleep, and we're kind of bad mood. I don't want to go to school, all of that. I would say, hey, remember, today's a good day. We're going to, power through it. After school, you can, do this, and this. So those prompts help the child get through that moment of transition. Excuse me. With the visual timers, I had them for each kid. And they are the ones that have the red, so you can see when the time is going up. So if my kids required breaks after each task, they couldn't do 2 or 3 tasks. So it would be a task, break, task, break. For example, homework, they would do 10 minutes of math, and then they get a 1-minute break. Then they get 10 minutes of social studies and then a 1-minute break, something like that. Those clocks is a prompt that they need to stay focused for that amount of time. Reinforce, praise, attention, stickers, token economy, choice board, reward point charts. You have probably used these yourselves, or you've seen families. The refrigerators are filled with stickers, on the refrigerator. My kids were really motivated by tangibles. Stickers, they didn't give a hoot. They wanted tangibles. So I had created a system where Wednesdays and Saturdays, you will get a token so we can go to Five Below and get something cheap. So they had to have positive behaviors Sunday, Monday, Tuesday to earn the token Wednesday. And then they have to have positive behaviors Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to earn the token. And then they would have 2 tokens to go get something. They were each worth like a dollar or whatever amount. If they didn't earn it Wednesday, they still had an opportunity to earn it on Friday. So that worked for us. I also have kiddos that need something daily, and it doesn't have to be something to buy. It could be one-on-one attention, sitting down with dad or sitting down with mom and doing something the kid really likes to do. It could be a video game. It could be a movie. It could be something where they're spending time with something that's going to motivate them to have positive behaviors all day. Also, my kids were big on ice cream, and so I would buy those Walmart ice cream in a cup with those wooden spoons. My goodness, that was like a big reinforcer. Cheap, right? And then I just squirt a little Hershey syrup on it. Sometimes if I was feeling really extra generous, I stick a cherry on top. So those different things we want to reinforce. Some kiddos respond very well to praise. Good job, buddy. I like the way you did that. I like how you clean up your room. And they love that. That's enough for them. Next. So let's talk a little bit about reinforcers. So what are reinforcers? Like I said, some of it can be tangible, could be positive attention, sensory. It also can be an escape. Now, escape, you might hear, oh, they're trying to get out of doing something. Not necessarily. It could be both ways. It could be, I need that escape, or it can be, I'm trying to get out of something. So it could work both ways. So the question is, when do we reinforce? So these are things that we do not want to reinforce when behaviors are undesired. If you probably have witnessed families, anybody in a checkout lane, and do you know why they set all the candy in that lane? It's a marketing tool. It's eye level, hand level, kiddo level. It's all PR. And if you have an expectation that we're not going to have candy before dinner, that expectation needs to be given to them before they walk into the store, and then reminded when they walk up to the checkout lane. Now, we could do that, and then the kid sees that M&Ms and starts having a meltdown. Sometimes I have witnessed, not sometimes, a lot of times, I have witnessed family so embarrassed. It is embarrassing. It's happened to me. It's embarrassing. It's loud. They're anxious over candy. And the family would just give them the candy cane or the M&M just to be quiet. So what happens next? Next time in that checkout lane, they know exactly how to get those M&Ms. We are reinforcing that negative behavior. If you stick to your expectations and say, no, and let the kid scream. Let the kids scream. I guarantee you, families are proud of you for standing firm. They're probably thinking to themselves, man, I wish I had that kind of power. They're not judgmental or criticizing or anything. They know. And they wish they could do the same with their kids. Only to be used when you see or hear the appropriate behaviors. So we want to reinforce those positive behaviors. And it could be, again, praise. It can be attention. It could be one-on-one time. It could be any of those things. So when we see an appropriate behavior 5 times in a row, I'm going to give them 5 reinforcers. It could be most likely, great job. I appreciate that. Awesome. Thank you for your help. Hey, after dinner, you get extra time on the computer. Those are the behaviors you want to see happen again. And if they are reinforced, it's going to happen again. When replacement behaviors are demonstrated. So if you use the first done, first clean up your toys, then you may have ice cream. And oftentimes, when you see that they have cleaned up their toys, they're getting reinforced with ice cream. Next. So consequences. So as I mentioned before, we are not in the business of punishment. Consequences is an action, anything that happens after a behavior. Now remember, a behavior is anything that is actionable. Drinking water is a behavior. Snapping my fingers is a behavior. Hitting my face is a behavior. So as you see, it's a response after behavior that I'm calling it consequent. So if I'm having a positive behavior, the consequences, I get ice cream. I clean up my toys, I get ice cream. A negative behavior, if I'm hitting myself in the face and somebody blocks that and I have no access to my face, that's a consequence. My hand is being removed. So when we are setting up consequences for our children, we must follow through on those consequences. Now, consequences can change over time. It is age-appropriate consequences. And we want to match the level of consequences with the behavior. So for example, what does not match is, okay, clean up your toys or go to bed. Okay, well then they got out of cleaning up their toys. Sure, I'd much rather go to bed. Cooperate or be spanked. Homework now or you lose your iPad for a week. Those don't match. We want to match them. So here's an example of a match. Clean up your toys or skip a video game. So a toy and a video game is in the same category. Homework now or skip playing outside later. Homework and playing outside is equal. When we're doing this consequences, it's the low probability with the high probability, the first then approach. So first, you clean up your toys and then you get ice cream. Okay, that's a consequence. I did this, so I get this. And you want to have a positive spin on it. You wouldn't want to say, hey, if you don't clean up your toys, you don't get ice cream. Well, maybe I don't want ice cream right now, so I really don't care. So if you put a positive spin on whatever that reinforces, what they want to work for is what you want to use. You want to stand firm. Sometimes the way they look at us and they bat their eyelids and they got this pouty little look on their face and they're so cute when they're upset. They're just manipulating you. Okay, they're tugging your heartstrings. It works. That's why they do it. That they're brilliant at it. But we want to do is you want to stand firm. I'm sorry, honey, you didn't clean up your toys, so there's no ice cream. And I bet you $100 that kid is now going to go clean up that toys because you stand firm. And every time you stand firm, they're following those expectations. They know where you and dad stand. We want to match our facial expressions with our words. So oftentimes I'm very expressive and people have said I have a poker face. So I do sometimes have to be, even when I'm like kidding and I have this poker face look on, people are like, are you kidding? I'm like, I'm kidding. So with our facial expressions, if we're standing firm and we're looking at our child, trust me, they tug on that string. Been there. I have 3 girls. They could drama. So they were like, please, Mom, please, please, please. And I said, you did not meet the expectation. And my eyeballs have to go in. My face has to be serious. Okay. So part of me inside wants to just like chuckle because they're being so cute, or avoid hugging when you're doing a consequence like that, because then they know, oh, Mom, if I just hug her really tight and she's going to give in, and pretty good chance we'll give in. Again, less is best. It's very important that we not over explain everything. You want to keep their attention short, simple, concise, precise explanations. Next. So I have a couple of the next slides is things that we could use. This one here is we're going to use with a child on a regular basis to prevent sensory overload, movement, listening, smell, touch and temperature, sight, taste. I got some kiddos that really are into aromatherapy and different smells, movement, absolutely. Go for a walk, sometimes carrying something heavy, touch and temperatures, some like the weighted blankets, popping bubble wrap, sight, going, looking at the stars. We had a lava lamp when my kids were little and they liked that turned on at night. We also had a fish tank, so they always enjoyed looking at fish. So these are some of the things you can help regulate their sensory overload. Next. Okay, click again. All right, so these are, and click again, please. There we go. Oh, back one. There we go. Thank you. So these are just prevent frustration of the unknown. When you just like, what is going on with my kiddo? It's not hot, it's not cold, you just like, what's going on internally? Here are some of the things we want to set clear expectations, model, be consistent. If you're changing up your expectations, the child is confused. And then when they don't follow that expectation, the parent gets upset and frustrated. But the kid is like, well, you didn't have that last week. Be consistent, acknowledge, and evaluation. This is, as we know as parents, it's trial and error. May work one day, but it may not work the next day. Kind of goes with our foods. My kids were big into hot dog, mac and cheese, chicken fingers, peanut butter and jelly, and now they won't go near those foods with a 10-foot pole. It's like, well, you guys that's all you ate. And now they won't even touch it. So, okay, well, then I need to try something new, something different. So those expectations, modeling, consistency, acknowledgement, evaluation. Next, please. Here's some techniques for when your child is having meltdowns. These are things that we like want to work on when they're, escalating, but we want to get it before they peak. Because once they peak and they're in that red zone, you can't go back down. You can't go backwards. So you have to work through the peak and then you come back down. Here we want to do it before they get to that peak. For example, when they start having a meltdown, the last thing we want to do is make demands. We don't want to reason because that just escalates them. We want to use a distraction. We call that redirection. Sometimes it's just redirecting them, especially in social situations. If they're at the playground and they don't want to leave and they have a meltdown. And this was a trigger. Oh boy, I got to start counting down. Okay, 5, 4. I hear a lot of parents at playgrounds use the countdown. Most of the time it works. Sometimes it doesn't. And so then the kid melts down. I use the first get in the car. And then when we get home, you get this. Okay, so these are the things I want them to do. I want them to get in the car. And I use that distraction. Avoid the word no. No is a trigger word. So when you say no, that escalates the behavior because nobody likes to be told no. So other words you can say later, not now, how about, first then. Sometimes the debriefing exercises work with my children. We'll be in the car and they start fighting in the car and they get agitated and they have nowhere to go. So they're kind of stuck in their car seats. And I was like, okay, well, we're going to do some deep breathing. They learn to do that. So those are some of those techniques there for you. Next. Here are some ways you can use some strategies to use when the child is exhibiting anxiety. So 8 ways kids can calm down anywhere. We count to 5. That's a lot of good ones. Sometimes counting ABCs or singing a song, taking a deep breath, blowing our hands. During COVID, I had taught my children to keep their hands in their pockets when we went out because I didn't want them touching things. This is like 2021, 22 type of thing. And that calmed them down. And so, that's another strategy. Sometimes we want to make a fist and then we relax our hand. We do a body scan. And this is a mindful exercises. Okay, everyone, we're going to touch our head. And we're going to take a deep breath. Okay, now let's touch our nose. Take a deep breath. Oftentimes asking for a hug, just that sensory, that touch, that pressure, they just need to be hugged. Especially when school has started, a new classroom, new teachers, new routines, and things like that. Next. Okay, I'm going to open this up for Q&A, and then I want to show you our website for parents. Does anyone have any questions?
This is Maddie. Go ahead and put in the chat if you have any questions. Thank you so much though for that. That was so much good information about managing behavior. I really love that, all behavior is communication. Let's get to the root of what the issue is and address that, rather than just be like, they're just doing something I don't like. So yeah, really great stuff.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions?
Well, I'll pull up our website, and if you have any questions, go ahead and type it in the chat. I just want to show you some resources that we have. Let's see here. There we go. That didn't work. Okay. Everything around. There we go. So when you come up to our website, you're going to just click in
Kari,
NSSCO.
we're still seeing the PowerPoint. You might have to unshare and then reshare with the right window.
Thank you. I might have to, I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
Yeah, try to share it again now with the right window picked.
Okay, are you all able to see?
Yep.
Perfect. So ISRC is a free service for families across the whole state that are deaf and hard of hearing and or vision impaired. And there's many things that we offer. We provide behavior support services. There's 4 behavior coaches, which I am one. And we can come in and provide behavior support at home and or school. We also have a lot of library materials, free lending library, any games, books, resources. We can sign up for a membership and we will mail it to you with a prepaid postage and you can send it back. We also provide IEP support and behavior intervention plans and crisis assistant. I know we partner with CHS on a lot of those things. We also have speakers for parent support groups. That would be me. But what I do wanted to just bring your attention to is our services, and it's NSSCO ISRC, and our page comes up here. And if you find yourself, we have a section with parents, and we offer quite a bit for parents. We have Parent University, and you can get credit for some of these modules and information. We have gift cards if you complete these modules, which is really nice. Love Amazon. We also have parent cafe events. We have a whole bunch of resources in Spanish and in English. I'm going to click on this for parents. We have different things you can here's some visual support. When I'm mad, I'm going to smell the flower, blow out the candle. Cake 5, some of those visuals, which is really neat. We also partner with Guide by Your Side through Hands and Voices, which I'm also on the board and am the treasurer-elect for that organization. We have a voice volume chart, which sometimes really helpful because DHH kids can't hear how loud they are until they're maxed out, and it's like this for the rest of us. So that voice volume chart, we use, okay, outside voice, inside voice, whisper. It's really nice. Good for hearing kids too. So we have all these different things here. We also have parent facilitators, which is a really nice feature. We have several across the state, depending on where you live. So this is just some of the things that we have to offer. We have downloads for parents sometimes. If you just like want to behavior expectations at home, or here's a good one: eat dinner with your family night. We have different things. We have a literacy thing going on, behavior expectations at home. We have it in Spanish and in English. So those are just some of the things to help you guys. You don't have to sit here and figure out and reinvent the wheel. We want to make it easy for you guys. Home behavior point trackers. Going over this with your kiddo as they're older. There's so many different tools. And we have dads, we have information with that about sign language. A lot of the stuff we partner with CHS, so that's really nice. Just different things to use. So that is what ISRC, Illinois Service Resource Center. Again, we provide free services for families and kiddos who are DHH and or vision impaired. So anyone have any questions? I have like 8 minutes. So please, anybody have any questions? Okay, so thank you so much for your insight. I'm excited to try these techniques. The voice volume chart will for sure come in handy. Do you think speech therapy would help with moderating voice level as well as slurring? Yes. As I was born deaf, and I was not identified deaf until I was 4, and it was because I wasn't speaking. So my parents had me evaluated, and sure enough, I'm walking around deaf, and put a hearing aid on, and now this is back in the 70s. So stuck me in speech therapy 3 times a week for 8 years, private. And a lot of those things that we did in speech and language is volume control. And there's also some that you cannot control. So for example, if their ear is plugged from swimming, they talk a little louder. That's an environmental thing. That's not something that we can, help with. But when they're oftentimes I find that kiddos get annoyed when they're like, shh, tone it down, it just goes out the other ear. It's that repetitive nagging, like, shh. But speech therapy can help them recognize when they're loud. As a parent, I don't got time for that, right? I got time to say, shh, we're in the library. Shh, speech therapy will help them with that. So thank you so much for that question. And slurring as well, for sure.
This is Maddie. If a family wanted to request ISRC support at home, how would they do that?
So good question. There is a back to this website. We have a tab on the left hand, and it says refer a student for ISRC support. And you would put all your student details or your kiddos details. You parents, families, caregivers, schools can make a referral, and you fill this out. And once that goes to the director, then depending on where you live, you're assigned to a coach. So it's a 48-hour turnaround time. So it's very quick.
Awesome. Yeah, we see this a lot with families that I advocate for, especially in schools. They can come in and ISRC can come in and do assessments and behavior plans. And it's really great. And if you just Google Illinois Service Resource Center, that will take you to the website too, because I know it moved fairly recently to NSSEO. So yeah, it's a great resource. Those parent university things where you can win gift cards are really great. The lending library is great. Lots of awesome resources on there.
So feel free to reach out to Maddie if you have any trouble with getting onto our site. She can pass that on to me. If there's not any other questions, I don't want to hold up on your Thursday night, one more day to the weekend. But I appreciate being here. I hope this helped you guys. This gives you some tips and strategies. Beginning of the school year is always tough, getting back into a routine, stick to those routines. And I wish all of you a great school year. And thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you, Kari. We really appreciate your time.
You're very welcome.
All right. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Gloria. Thank you, Alicia.